Moe swag.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Monday, the 6th of May, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Monday.
And Robert Kemp.
Sorry, that's thrown me. I don't have anything for that. It could be Moan Day, now that it's raining. It was nice and... It was fun day.
I think Monday is just Moan Day by default.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It was kind of a fun day earlier because it was all sunny and bright.
Sunday fun day.
It's supposed to be, but it wasn't. I mean, Sunday was pretty nice as well.
I mean, obviously, bank holidays are notorious for wet weather. Notorious for wet weather.
Yes,
they come with a six-pack of beer and then it's back to work. AG.
AIN.
AIN.
Has anyone else ever written a good bank holiday song? I mean, I know it's like super obvious that that's what it's about.
I'm sure they have, but whether they've put it on a massively successful pop record, there must be loads of good bank holiday songs that are unreleased.
Yeah, or at least I can't even remember a lyric at the moment that references a bank holiday.
Maybe they think it's too, British specific to put in a pop song.
Probably nowadays.
Whereas Blur were doing it on purpose, probably, to be as Britishy as they could.
Probably a
Britpop.
Probably a hard-fire Ordinary Boys song that references it, right? That's that sort of... They talk about it. If they did a song about cash machines...
The only thing I remember about that song is every time I go to a cash machine, I'm like, go to a cash machine, get some money out.
Yeah.
That's not even the lyrics, man.
I think it kind of is, isn't it? Like,
maybe.
I think it might be.
Yeah, that's the way to have successful songs that stick in people's minds for a long time, is make very specific kind of mundane scenarios that you can connect them to.
I suppose cash machines aren't... Well, actually, cash machines by the name cash machine is kind of a rare thing in music, right? ATMs, slightly less. Like if you're
who's rhyming ATM? Well, probably rappers are rhyming ATM.
Yeah. That comes up. It comes up.
That would, yeah. But that's because there's so much talk about money in...
I think there's a song on my playlist that's literally called ATM, and they say it a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's easier to write. Maybe, I don't know. It sounds cooler as well, like to rap, I suppose. ATM than cash machine.
Depends what you want to write with, probably.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think there's more flow in an ATM than a cash machine.
It sounds very archaic. I mean, obviously, the whole concept of a cash machine is now starting to become archaic.
Sure.
But T stands for teller, doesn't it? Well, I mean, who says teller?
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
A bank. What is a teller? Is someone who
works
behind the counter.
Yeah. Basically. A bank.
Yeah.
But did we have bank tellers? I think they were just clerks, weren't they?
Or bankists.
Clerks.
I think clerks.
Bankists.
Clerks are like further back off the counter, though, right? They're just like the generic workers.
Do you not interact with a clerk when you go to?
I mean, you do it at convenience store,
right?
Only
in the back office.
It's a different type.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, but it has the same kind of general meaning, right? Someone who does a business for you.
You've done a business. I say that to the cat quite a bit.
Is the cat your clerk?
Oh, I wish.
The clerk of shit.
Special delivery. Oh, I've done all the filing for you. I've put my poo here, and here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, did you not ask for that? Oh, okay. I'll do nothing about that.
Distribute your assets.
I need to make sure my wealth is spread out on multiple locations to lower risk.
Yep.
And need to divest my portfolio. Straight after this podcast.
That's a great epithet. The clerk of crap.
Clerk of crap. Cat of catastrophe and the clerk of crap.
Surely this cat isn't the cat of catastrophe, though. That one is.
Oh, no.
I mean, it could be, but I don't think it's nearly like angry enough to be a catastrophe cat.
No, he's just dirt.
Yes.
Is it still? Well, does catastrophe imply anger? Do you have to?
I mean, in reference to an animal, probably. It has to be kind of vigorous in some ways.
Be the cat of clumsy then. It's not really a D word that you could describe a cat, right?
The whole point is it starts with a C because it's the cat.
Yeah.
Well, you have to think of another C word.
I wanted something of derp because that best describes my cat.
So this is a relatively new addition to the household, is it?
Yeah, a couple of months now. But,
a couple of months, settling in.
Yeah. By pissing and sitting everywhere.
as you do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about it on the cast before, but yeah, it's the constant battle between cat and baby. The cat has a tendency to just be a pain in the arse and dirty up the place, and then Miles and the cat tend to fight. Or Milesy doesn't quite understand the whole, be nice to the cat thing. And the cat doesn't understand the whole, if I'm not near the baby, then I won't be hit.
Surely most cats will cotton onto that. Just stay away from the source of the issue.
This is what I mean by, this is why I want to call him the cat of derp or something, because he's an utter moron. He just doesn't learn anything. And I know that's a very cat trait, but he seems particularly derpy. Particularly. Just hunts. He wants to... Well, unless he gets a bit of a rush, I don't know, by just being in the path of danger the whole time.
Do you think he's a daredevil?
He's just I bet I could sleep right here. It'll give me such a dopamine hit. If I narrowly avoid a slapping hand. But in fairness to Miles, he's starting to get the concept of be nice to the cat and give so when he's come up to the cat and we've been sort of trying to show him what to do and stuff like that by holding his hand and then having stroking the cat gently, but we're controlling that. He did that to me the other day.
What you got?
He grabbed my hand and showed me how to pet the cat, and it's that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
But now I'm worried that he thinks that's maybe a prerequisite to petting the cat. Someone else has to
involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a logical conclusion if you can't explain it.
Well, yeah, because that'd be pretty useful if that is what he's learned. Because then he won't go to the cat himself. He'll be like, "Oh, I need someone else to do this." Torment requires company. Or an accomplice. One of the two. Otherwise, what's going on, peeps? What's happening?
I don't know. I didn't film much with this bank holiday.
No, I spent, I let Gnome do allotment things, so that I've done basically nothing because it's, you can't really sink into doing anything when you're watching a child. You can, you can sort of do things, but you're constantly stopping, and so you can't really set out to do anything meaningful. Played a fair amount of games.
Yeah,
as a result,
you can fit that in.
Yeah, you kind of can. Yeah, you have to pick your game for sure.
Yeah,
something you don't mind necessarily missing a bit of, or something that pauses very easily. Which sort of weirdly makes Forager actually kind of a difficult choice with its lack of pausing in some parts of the game. Got to be selective. Yeah,
you'd think that would be that kind of more cozy kind of game, I guess, would be more.
Did you describe Forager as cozy? It's a bit manic, really.
Yeah,
right?
It's maybe cozy in the early game, but then it starts getting much more crazy the later you get through it.
There's always stuff happening and numbers popping off. And tink, 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 chink, chink, whip, whip, chink.
That's what's making it so addictive, right?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that sort of pachinko clank. Maybe. But yeah, but it doesn't have a pause, which I find slightly weird. You can sort of cheese a
pause.
pause.
Okay.
No, you can sort of cheese a pause by going into the like skill menu, right? And then it actually pauses. Or maybe if you jumped into a dungeon, you could go into a dungeon and that's sort of the outside world is sort of paused while you're in there.
Just go into the museum, I guess.
Yeah. But that's a bit of a hassle, like if you suddenly need to like go, oh god.
Well, yes, obviously. It's not like pushing a button.
So, yeah, play games at pause. That's been my bank holiday.
Well, I had a trip to Bristol last weekend. Not the most exotic locale, but it is a nice city.
Yeah, Bristol's
Bristol.
all right. Yeah.
Bristol. Yeah, it's nice. Why? When have you been there?
Well, my sister-in-law lived there for a bit. Or nearby.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we used to be there. Well, yeah, I've been there a couple of times, but it was in like Clevedon outside. So.
Oh, right, okay.
But nearby. Bristol.
Yeah.
Bristol's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite relaxed. Big seagulls, though. Anywhere near the sea, it's like quite a marked difference, isn't it? Giant gulls coming out of nowhere, eating stuff off the ground.
Stealing your sausage rolls.
Yeah. Exactly.
In one take. Cut your arm off, they will.
Yeah. Oh, God. What, like a swan breaking your arm with its...
Well, no, I was thinking more just like one snap of their bill was a bit like a razor blade or something. Just like...
That's right.
Cut your arm off. Snip, snip.
Mine. Yeah.
That's what they say when they fly off. They're just like, haha, snip, snip.
Snip, snip.
And then they realise they carry everything they've stolen in their mouth and drop it on like, oh. Such is life of a seagull.
Okay.
Cutting off arms and then dropping your swag.
Dropping your swag. And yeah, if you're near the coast, there's a swarm of them.
Yes. Mine. It's been a while since I've seen a seagull, actually, thinking about it.
Made me think of there's a really weird bit in Lord of the Rings, which I was reading. I was reading Lord of the Rings a while back, and there's a bit where Legolas, as played by Orlando Bloom in the film, they didn't put this in the film. I wonder why. Because at one point, they're moving towards the coast. I think it's when they're like, they go through the mountain in Return of the King with the dead, or whatever, the big dead green army or whatever.
Right.
Remember that? And then they come out on the other side of the mountains and they're near the sea. And that's where like the Corsairs of Umbar and everything, they skip over that part in the film. But anyway, it's where they get there. Anyway, so they're near the sea and they hear, at one point Legolas hears a seagull and he's like, oh no, I'm fucked. Because like...
Well, because they're going to cut his arms off. And then he can't use his bow.
Literally just the sound of seagulls, or like the thought, he doesn't even see the sea, he just hears a seagull, and that's enough for him to feel the call of the sea or whatever, which is like a problem for him as an elf, because even though he grew up in the woods, like a long way from the sea, all elves have this innate thing where they have this desire to go over the sea to Valinor or whatever. So as soon as he hears a seagull, he's like, "Oh no, I'll never be happy again unless I go on a boat over the sea."
Wait. So
then he gets on a boat, right? But I guess
he does go in
upriver.
the end.
But
that's true.
How does that work if you're living in a port, or do elves not have ports?
I mean,
they do, like they live in Linden or whatever, but they're all leaving. They're all are getting on boats.
Yes,
right?
They all get on boats eventually.
Eventually, it's just that he grew up in the woods or whatever, which is a long way from the sea or whatever, and he never really felt that before. Then he heard a seagull, and he's like, "Oh no,
like,
now I need to leave this place."
How is it only meant to apply to like sea stuff when he's like, even in the film, he gets on boats several times, rivers. Just like rivers don't count, apparently.
I guess they don't smell.
No, rivers don't count.
They don't
it has to be
smell
the
the
sea.
same. They don't have that ocean smell.
Yeah, they're too freshwater. Yeah, because he paddles down the Anduin on the big river, doesn't he? And he's fine.
Also,
it's only when he hears a seagull that he's like, "Oh no."
I'm trying to visualize how it looks in the film, but when they're going down the river in those boats and they're coming to the big statues, and the camera graphically looks up, Are there like birds flying in that shot that might be seagulls? Which wouldn't necessarily be seagulls, but they could be gulls of some kind.
Yeah, they could be.
Also, the
but
Lord of
that's
the Rings
still quite far from the sea at that point, I think.
The Lord of the Rings just straight up as gulls as well, not like some other fantasy bird.
I mean, they could just be called seagulls.
Yeah, that's true.
They could actually be tiny dragons.
Aren't they already?
Cut your arm off.
Cut your arm off.
Sea dragons. They cut your arm off with a razor bladed. And they could talk, obviously, like Smaug.
Yeah, naturally. Snippy, snippy.
But they have pirate accents, obviously. Because they're from Bristol.
Oh, lad, I'll cut your arm off.
Cut your arm off.
No, stay with your chips.
Legolas is like, no, my chips.
I need those to live. Potatoes.
Gimli's laughing at him.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Fry them.
None of those are chips.
You gotta fry them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Do you fry? Yeah, I suppose they have to be sort of fried to be, to go before they get to the oven chip step, right? They've got to be coated in something, so you can't just.
Well, oven chips are just a way to get the frying process out of your house, basically.
Yeah, they've already got to put a coating on those bad boys, I guess, before they.
Not sure how they really work, oven chips. Well, like, what is the coating that they come out sort of not really fried?
I mean, I'm sure it's just that they're like pre-processed potatoes, so it's obviously been mashed beforehand and reformed into chips.
Yeah,
and then probably it's partially pre-cooked, so really all you're doing is heating them up. They're probably actually already fried.
If it was like actually like it almost certainly is pre-mashed, but then why not like oven chips like never uniform, right? Surely they'd be like perfectly the same.
Because they've designed it specifically to make them non-uniform, to make you think it's not reprocessed garbage.
I don't know, because that would require a lot of molds. Like if it was
you
like
don't need
that,
to mold it.
It
would be like it's like when you're
a sort of squidgy square.
If you imagine you're extruding a bunch of like Play-Doh out of a mold, like the way it breaks off is sort of random just by the structural integrity of them.
Right. So you're saying that's why they're all the same thickness? Exactly,
yeah, but they're randomly lengths. I doubt this is actually true, but yeah, that could be one way it could happen.
So they're not chips in the sense that they're chipped off chips.
No, I guess not.
Chipped.
Not that any chips are like chipped off of it.
No, they're cut.
Well, they are if they're chipped and fried. That's how they make them, right?
But it's not really like chipped chips. Like with a chisel. That's what you could. I suppose you could chisel them off a potato.
That's kind of how they're done, isn't it? Yeah.
That's like it's sliced. It's not like chipped.
It's not like you could.
To be like chipped, you'd have to like hold the potato and then like carve a singular chip off it, and then keep doing that as you work your way through the whole potato.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like to truly be chips.
I mean, I guess you could do it that way.
You could, but that'd be dumb.
What's that Michelin star approach? Like,
that's how you do the fancy chips.
Yeah,
you can't cut an individual chip at once.
Indeed. You only cook one at a time, ever.
You cut it off and then immediately throw that one into the oil and then cut the next one off and then retrieve that one from the oil before you throw the next one in. Individually cooked chips.
There'll be somewhere that is doing a process not too dissimilar from that, right?
Probably.
A chip off the old potato.
I was just thinking though, like surely the elves and port thing you were talking about, that must be like crazy inconvenient though, right?
Very inconvenient. So don't go near the sea, otherwise you'll have to leave.
How do they trade inwards? Right? Because if all the elves go to the port and they go, sod, I'm going to have to go. Like, who's actually transporting the stuff inland? Do they have to like borrow a dwarf?
Well, it's the people who are hardcore enough to resist it. They have the mental fortitude to resist the temptation for long enough to become like traders.
I'm a land elf. It's fine. Yeah, I guess there must be some that just don't care, right?
There's some that, I mean, a lot of them just stay where they started and don't leave. Yeah. I mean, that's why most of them are there in the first place, because when they originally were created elves, they got like a quest to go west to Valinor or whatever, and some of them were like, "I'll stop this halfway through," and just stopped. And that's why they're all over the Middle Earth, because they just stopped. Some of them, and some of them came back, like Galadriel or whatever. She grew up in. I think she was probably born in Valinor. Is that right? If you watch the Amazon series, that's the first scene.
Well, she's
a little girl in Valinor, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then she comes back to Middle Earth.
And then it almost goes back there, right? Gets halfway and then...
Yeah, according to the TV show, which is a load of nonsense. But anyway.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not canon. I fully agree with that. That show, people rag on that show. I thought that show was all right.
It was well boring.
It was all right. I've seen worse.
Well,
I mean, it's not hard. It's not on Netflix or whatever.
That was Amazon, Prime. Yeah. Amazon.
Oh, they're all the same.
I don't know. I think Amazon is a bit more. If I was to rate the services, Paramount Plus excluded because I've not dabbled, I'd say Prime is the barrel scraper, and then you got Netflix.
But they've just
and
come
then you got
out with
Netflix
the
and Disney that are fine.
Amazon have just made the hit Fallout series. I actually want to watch that.
Yeah, I do want to watch that. I haven't convinced Noam.
They occasionally have a hit, Amazon.
Yeah.
I just don't think.
And I quite liked that. And it's not Reacher. But what's the other? Is it Jack? Is Reacher? Is there a Reacher and a Jack Reacher, and they're two different things? Something like that.
Maybe.
Anyway, was it Tom Cruise was in a bunch of films about Jack something? Anyway, I want to say it's Jack Reacher. It's probably not Jack Reacher.
I think it's Jack. I think you're right that is called Jack Reacher, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah, and I saw the first 2 seasons of that Amazon TV show of Jack Reacher, which has the guy from The Office, the American Office. It's sort of the lead and the director of it, I think. And
isn't there one where
that's pretty good?
It's
that's
Tom Clancy or whatever. Is there one?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it is. I think this is the one. I think it is a Clancy thing,
right? Which has nothing to do with the Tom Cruise thing. Yeah. But
no, it does. It's the same thing.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Is it
the films are the same universe. Well, not the same universe, but it's I think it's all the same character, but not necessarily Clancy made. If you know what I mean,
Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan. That's it.
Jack Ryan's the Tom Clancy character.
Yes,
because he's played by Alec Baldwin in The Hunt for Red October, and then he's played by Harrison Ford in 2 films, Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games. The other way. Chronologically, the other way around.
Yes, no, you're right. Yeah, it is Jack Ryan.
Character.
And Jack Ryan is the same thing I was thinking about for the Prime series as well. You're right.
Right. Whereas Jack Reacher is a different character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone loves a Jack, right? Easiest protagonist name in the world. Just slap a Jack.
Jack's like the classic American male protagonist name.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just James Bond, but American.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Well, that was the thing about Jack Ryan is, at least in the, presumably they have this trait of his character bring that forward, but he's just a bookworm type guy who's thrust into
he's an analyst.
Action. Yeah. Right, he's a CIA analyst. So naturally you get Harrison Ford to play him. I think Harrison Ford did quite a good job seeming like a bookwormy a little bit in those films. But it's hard with Harrison Ford.
There were films before Tom Cruise. The Tom Cruise ones.
The first one I know of is The Hunt for Red October, where it's Alec Baldwin.
Oh, that's a Jack Ryan. I didn't know that was a Jack Ryan film. Ah.
Yeah, that's Jack Ryan. And then Patriot Games with Sean Bean. Right?
I've seen that damn film. And I'm I didn't make the connection. I don't know why.
It's the same character. And then Clear and Present Danger is
I haven't seen that one.
Drugs. That one's quite good. I quite like Clear and Present Danger. It's got some hilarious 90s computer hacking scenes, which is quite funny to look back on. So that's quite cool.
I'm well into those.
It had a plot where it's a secret mission into wherever the drugs are being made, Colombia or one of those South American countries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit where they want to kill as many drug lords as they can at once, the US military, in a secret. So they wait until they're all gathered at a party, and then someone arrives with this ostentatious monster truck, one of the drug lords or whatever, to the party, and they use that. They have a special bomb that they drop from an F-18 that leaves no metal case traces, so it seems like there was a car bomb in the.
I see.
In the monster truck, and it's like it's a special, and he does all the hacking to work out. It's a secret bomb that's made out of paper or whatever, cellulose or something like that can't be traced. It was quite fun. I like that one. And Harrison Ford, always good value. It's a bit weird him, like I say, him playing a supposed to be not heroic action guy in action situations.
Right.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got to be slightly awkward, right? That's the
trick.
And
I know what has the thread in between is it may be Alec Baldwin in Hunt for Red October and Jack Harrison Ford in the other ones, but his boss is always James L. Jones, which is quite good.
Yeah, they didn't get him for the Amazon one.
No, he's a bit old now. Anyway, Amazon.
I thought he died like a little while back.
Did he die? I think he definitely
pretty recent. Yeah,
he definitely. No, he did die, didn't he? He was old, wasn't he? I think. I know he signed something that said, "I'm done doing the Darth Vader voice forever now, officially." But you go ahead and use my voice, and then I think maybe he.
Oh, wait for like AI generated.
Yeah.
No, he's on Wiki as an is. He might still be alive. I do apologise. Sorry, James.
How old?
Sorry,
93.
James.
Yeah, 93. That's not bad going. He's still going.
Sorry. Not dead.
Sorry for thinking you might be dead. 93-year-old man.
How rude of me. How rude. I'll tell you what I did do this weekend.
What's that?
Renewed my broadband contract.
With
I just wanted like, it's totally the most mundane thing in the world. I did that, but I just wanted to shout like how like infuriating it is that a broadband provider can't make a website that's worth a shit.
Oh no, they can't.
Don't get me wrong. I've been with PlusNet for donkey's years now. Where does that even come from? Donkey's years.
Don't start discussing random phrases in the middle of our podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to get off topic.
Well,
and you know, their service has always been pretty solid with me. To be fair, it's not the actual broadband is bad, but it isn't bad. But the it's for what we can get here, I suppose, in the middle of the nowhere. But the their website is rubbish. Like they were trying to say, like, oh, you don't use your landline, do you? You could upgrade, quote unquote, to this version of the service that isn't. That doesn't have your phone line on it, and it's a little bit cheaper. And then they go and rattle off what the estimated speeds are, and they're a lot lower than what I'm getting. And it's like, okay. So then begins the research to be like, what's happened? Like, is some sort of confusion around like Ofcom's that, you know, as stated, like how those estimates are supposed to be done has changed. And it's like, well, if those estimates are supposed to be done have changed, it's like, why would my renewal not use that change of estimate as well? And it all got very confusing. And ended up just renewing my old contract. Like, I don't know, it's next to no difference in price, but also it's just, I don't know, don't quite understand. I don't want to take that risk, right? Don't want to take that risk. Anyway,
I mean, yeah.
Sort yourself out, guys. And it's like, sort yourself out. Build a better website. I don't want to have to like say, oh, show me my renewal price, and then get stuck on a loading page. Like, it's just a spinner that says loading that never, ever ends. Unless you refresh it yourself, and then it's fine. It's a bad website. Sort it out. This this public service announcement brought to you by Happy Salad.
Yes. Get your act together, ISPs.
Sort it out. And hurry up, OpenReach, getting me some proper fibre. I'll buy it in an instant. Just bring it here. Hook it to my veins. Actually, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want like the memes running through my blood. Just
I don't know. I think we're pretty much intravenously connected at this point already to the memeverse.
Meet the memes. Yes, we did that. And also, I'm quite happy Clarkson's Farm is back on Amazon. I like that show.
There you go. There's an Amazon thing worthwhile, maybe.
Clarkson's Farm is good. As Grand Tour gets a bit long in the tooth, shall we say. I don't think anyone really likes the last one particularly.
Is it done now? Are they done working?
There's one more.
Right.
Like they've said they've put a definitive end on it, and I think they've done most of the filming for it, but it just hasn't been edited and released.
I've never watched a single episode of the Grand Tour.
I mean, it wasn't bad. It was as soon as that format of Top Gear ended, they went somewhere and they basically carried on that format of Top Gear at first, and it was fine. Then they stopped doing the studio type stuff to focus on doing very periodic, shall we say, incredibly infrequent specials and one-offs, and those haven't been quite so good as the old Top Gear stuff. And I think they're getting worse as time goes on. So hopefully the last one will end on a bit of a high, because those three are a bit of a institution. And people don't really like Clarkson, and that's fine. But the three of them together, him, James May, and Hamster, they don't off. They're a good combo. They work together. Entertainment.
I mean,
and they cancelled actual Top Gear because they could never find actual replacements.
Yeah,
it's hard to do, isn't it?
I mean, Gnome friggin' hates Paddy McGuinness, as an absolute being a bonnet about it. Just whenever he turns up on any show ever, he's bloody everywhere.
I mean, the Grand Tour and modern Top Gear, both of those things only exist because Jeremy Clarkson punched a producer in the face, right?
Well, yeah.
Because then they had to fire him.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. And Amazon were like, we're okay with punching your employees. Come do it with us. We like money.
Was that ever actually proven, or was it one of those allegedly things?
No, they fired him because he assaulted one of his employees. They would have let him get away with almost anything, I think, the BBC, because it was such a success, but I think they had no choice. Anyway, it's a long time ago.
Indeed. Did watch an old Top Gear, actually. That just happened to be on Dave.
Yeah, how did it compare to...
I mean, it's quite funny seeing, from about, 15, 20 years ago, and it's... And it's just well, yeah, it is kind of the same. I can see the same, but it's the editing was much faster. It seemed to move at a faster pace than it does in the modern one, which you'd think would be the opposite, right?
Yeah, you'd think they'd make it really kinetic or something to try and compensate,
for modern attention spans.
Yeah, or maybe that they don't have quite the cast chemistry that they used to.
Maybe that was just because it was a rerun on Dave, and it was an edit on top of the edit, right, to make it fit within.
Oh yeah,
because they have to put ads in.
Just squeeze the ads in.
It's possible.
Cars.
Oh, and if we're on the TV thing, I finished Pluto. So I think I talked about it a few podcasts ago, which is it's an anime on Netflix, and that's sort of loosely based on Astro Boy, but they turned it into a sort of a detective noir story, and it's pretty good. I quite enjoyed it most of the way through. Although it does the sort of Japanese anime thing, right? Like that, where the ending. I don't know. I feel about this about almost all Japanese anime that I watch, and it's just I'm enjoying the journey, and then they get to the actual conclusion, and they fluff it, right? The conclusions very rarely feel satisfying. There's too much unknowns, or there's too many unknowns, or it just sort of because, and now it's over and no one cares. And it's no, but there's so many hows and whys that you haven't explored, and now I don't really know how we got here. It's I enjoyed the ride. That feels especially a little egregious here in Pluto because it's a detective story at its heart for most of it, and then there is a mystery. There is a something everyone's trying to figure out, and then you get the core points for sure. Don't get me wrong, like the sort of like the key characters are all well, most of them, all but one of the key characters and what they did is kind of explained, but like the how they did it is always like left a little bit in the open. So they feel like plot holes towards the end, where it's just like, but how did he do that? How did that guy get there? Why is he doing that? I don't know. He just did. The end. Like, there's one whole character who I think ends, from my understanding, is basically the big bad, but you never really know how they're doing what they're doing or what influence they actually had. You just kind of seem to know that they're pulling the strings somehow, and it's yeah, apparently that stuff is explained in the actual manga, but like they leave a lot of gaps in the animation. So it's, yeah, as I say, ending left me a little bit, but the ride to get there is good. So and I don't think I think I'm a little bit in the minority with with my feelings on the ending on it. It's like I did that thing where you go and look it up and be like, okay, what's actually going on? Who was that? What's going on? Because people write that stuff up because the manga exists. And then it's like, oh, okay, I understand, but I had to go look it up. But I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way? Like, is that just like a sort of common anime trope that just like weird stuff just happens at the end?
Well, yeah, but usually it's like the entire world ends somehow, and then and then just restarts mysteriously.
Yeah,
and it's slightly different for some reason.
I mean, Evangelion's the obvious one, right?
Yes.
Those
yeah.
Whichever ending you pick is friggin' nuts. And almost unexplainable. But inexplicable. Inexplicable. I seem to remember... I need to go back and watch it, because I think it was like one of the first anime films I saw, and I was pretty young, called Metropolis. Like, not the...
Fritz Lang.
Yeah, not the Fritz Lang Metropolis, but an anime Metropolis. And I can't really remember a lot about it, but I get the feeling that the ending of that was kind of an out of nowhere tone shift. So I'll have to go check that out again at some point. I remember quite liking its aesthetic. Anyway, anime. Get your endings together, guys.
Fix your websites and get your endings together.
Yeah, get your endings together.
Right.
It's a podcast about video games.
Yeah, this is a podcast about video games. And on the topic, there has been some news in the past couple of weeks.
I mean, a little. not a lot.
A small amount to go through.
I mean, I don't think we want to pick out any individual game from it, but Xbox did an indie showcase, effectively. There were some games there. I don't know that any of them really stood out to me as being like that we've watched, because I missed it and I called up a little bit later, like just before the show. I don't think any of them are really standing out to me, but go check those out if you want to see it. They're all, it's nice to see indie stuff. Mm-hmm. Getting a shout out. For the rest of the news, and there isn't a lot of it, is kind of on the negative side. So let's talk about how the current darling Helldivers 2 that managed to piss off its PC contingent
user base. Yeah. What did they do?
Well, everything was going swimmingly, and then they decided to go. All right, guys. In the next update, we're going to force you to link your Steam account to PSN. Thanks.
What? So you're a PC gamer. Do you have a PlayStation?
No, I mean, you didn't have to before, right? So,
well, the whole problem is that, like, so the debate is whether how much of this is on Sony, how much of this is on the devs, and how much of this is just mistakes.
Right. So the game was supposed to launch with this PSN integration.
Yes, and it was always labelled on the Steam store page as requires a PSN account.
Yeah.
So is this a little bit like the old games for Windows where you had to have like a. Did you have to have an Xbox Live account?
Yeah, I think you did because it was how it verified.
Right. And plenty of games still force you to link to other launchers through Steam anyway. Obviously, Rocket League forces you to link to Epic, apart from you can't buy Rocket League on Steam any longer, so that's not really that relevant. But there's other examples. Most Ubisoft games.
Every Ubisoft game, forces you to
log into Ubisoft account.
Yeah.
Is it still Uplay or whatever? Some bullshit.
Probably. I guess, yeah. I think it might be. Wasn't it called Ubisoft Connect at one point? Or
maybe.
I don't know what it's currently called.
But that was always on the store page. And then at the launch of Helldivers 2, because it got so incredibly popular, this is where it sort of leans towards Sony's fault, where basically they didn't have the server capacity for the login server for PSN through Helldivers.
Yes.
Which I don't think you can blame that on the devs, because presumably it's just like from their end, it's just like an API, right? They're just accessing a Sony system.
It depends how they're funneling it. If it's the game talking to their servers and their servers then trying to funnel that through, and perhaps they've got like a bottleneck somewhere in their system before it goes to Sony. Depends how they've architected that bit of networking, I guess.
Yeah. But basically, because of the massive popularity, that was kind of being crap, apart from, a lot of other... They had other server problems apart from that, but that was one of the things. So they were like, we're just going to turn that... We're going to set it up so you can just skip that. You can skip the PlayStation sign-in and just play normally, I guess, if you're on Steam. So that was, I guess, the dev decision was to turn that off temporarily. Except they didn't necessarily make it super explicit it was temporary.
Yeah.
Apart from, obviously, the Steam store page always said that it required the PSN, which implies that it was never temporary.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly what it was, that it was meant as a temporary measure to just get the game functional after their stratospheric launch surprised them.
But then when it turns back into, like, here's the huge mistake, is that from the start, regardless of, like, before the game was even released, someone made the decision to make it available on Steam in all territories.
Oh, yes, this detail. I'd forgotten this.
But you can't actually get PlayStation Network in a lot of countries.
In all the same territories, yeah.
So basically someone screwed up on whether that's a Sony thing, like Sony should have told them that it wouldn't be able to be sold on Steam in all countries because of PSN and they just didn't know.
Yeah.
Or the dev who uploaded it to Steam didn't hit the right buttons to toggle that on. Don't actually know who's
the marketing manager or the ops manager. Yeah, whoever was in charge of that, it was set up wrong. So the Steam version is available and purchased and currently playable by players where it's not available on PlayStation Network, because PlayStation Network doesn't operate in those areas. So putting the forced login back in would, in theory, break access for those players.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they could borrow an address from somewhere.
Well, yeah, if you want to get into the illegal side of things.
Yeah, or maybe VPNing or something, I don't know. But
yeah, that will equally, against the terms of service of Sony's accounts, obviously.
Sure, and VPNing probably might mess up your game times, right?
And also, I don't think it would actually happen like this, but I wouldn't, not that I would, but I wouldn't want to do that on a PlayStation account that was linked to my Steam account. Like, what if the ban moved upstream? What if you got banned off PlayStation, but then they made Steam ban you from Steam as well?
I don't think they'd be able to do that. I don't think they would. No,
but
because you broke the PlayStation's terms of services doesn't mean you broke Steam's terms of service, right? I don't think they can escalate it in that way.
Well, maybe, but then, like, what if? Well, no, we don't need to talk about, like, what if you were hacking or whatever through Steam.
Completely different thing, yeah.
But yeah, basically everyone was pissed and review bombed the shit out of it. It was the most extreme review bomb you've ever seen. It was like they had, at the peak of, like, just after launch, after the server problems got fixed, basically, they had like 40,000 positive reviews in a week. And then this review bomb was like 200,000 negative reviews in a week.
Yeah.
Or 3 days even. But then this morning, Sony have said they're going to not do that after all. So good, I guess.
Yeah, I imagine it was Sony wanting, basically putting it on them because it's a Sony published game. Ultimately, it's
Well, I mean, statements have been made about obviously because it was always going to be like that. This whole problem was never going to exist. Essentially,
yeah, it dropped 30% on average according to Steam's ratings.
People.
Well, the way the Steam rating works, it's if you were to put it as a percentage, it's dropped by about 30% thanks to the review bombing.
Well, I mean,
I don't know quite how that translates to the actual tags it puts on it.
Well, they were working towards getting it to mostly negative overall.
Right.
Not even mixed. It was getting pretty close. Obviously, it's mostly negative in recent reviews. Except maybe not any longer because the anti-review bomb has started.
Yeah, well, yeah. Get it back to where it should be, I guess.
Except they're not going to be able to get it back to where it should be. They'll probably get it back to mostly positive. Well, yeah, probably mostly positive at least. They'll get it out of mixed, I imagine. But it's definitely going to be... It's never going to be back to the 97% positive or whatever it might have been post-launch.
The CEO of Arrowhead Games did tweet, "Oof," right in the review score.
Well, that was right early on as well. That was before people actually understood what was even going on, really.
But the bombing had begun.
But now they've just the trouble is that because it was the weekend, as is traditional, Sony couldn't get in there to make this decision any earlier, probably.
Probably not.
But then that's given them this whole weekend of, well, first of all, screwing up the review score, but secondarily, basically Steam started allowing refunds. A bunch of people who were in those countries that wouldn't be able to access it had already started refunding, so their player count's probably going to get fucked as well as the review score. Not as much as if they'd actually let it go through, and then all those people wouldn't have been able to play.
Would have gone anyway. I mean, yeah, in some respects, good on Steam for actually realising there was a problem there and being
Steam are usually pretty good at that kind of thing, where they will allow refunds if it is literally something of that nature.
But also, maybe they jumped on that a little fast.
Well, I mean, that's just the weekend.
Yeah.
If there's someone there to do it, then you'll get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's not like this is a very long timeline of events. This has all been kicking off over. It's you got to give Sony a little bit. If they are going to walk back on this, then it's and it wasn't Arrowhead's decision, right? Presumably it's going to take time for Arrowhead to talk to Sony to get the go-ahead to not do this.
Obviously, the problem is that, no one saw this coming. On some level, there's been a whole bunch of opportunities to figure out that something was going to be a problem, but no one did. And then even when Sony made their statement this morning or whatever about how they're not going to require the account linking, they were like, "Oh, thank you, PC players, for telling us what you want," basically. And it's maybe you should have possibly figured out ahead of time that PC players don't like account linking if it's not totally necessary.
Well, nobody really does. But I don't know. It was when I was playing something and I had to sign into a Warner Brothers account, and at that point I was just oh, for the love of nobody really enjoys that side of it. But also, I don't get why that bit on its own, ignoring the region thing, because the region thing does suck.
Yeah.
And it's obvious, and obviously sucks. It's not like the account linking thing is a new problem. It's... is it just something about Sony that people in particular just have beef with?
Because, Sony gets hacked all the time. That is the other argument people were making about how you don't want to link your accounts to someone who can just get all your data hacked immediately. But that's just a reporting thing. Whereas we know about Sony getting hacked a lot, but who knows how much all the other companies get hacked and we don't know about it.
Wow. I mean, in the EU, we absolutely should.
Well, yeah.
So there we go.
So we'll see how things shake out in the end. Probably not much is going to change.
I hope it. I hope they're okay. I bet they're okay. I bet they'll still remain to be okay because I mean, for Arrowhead, not for Sony.
Yeah.
Because good on them for making that game.
Well, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to try it if my PC was juicy enough for it.
But... I mean, I'm sure it's probably capable of running at some level.
Yeah, that's just the at some level bit that scares me these days. Yeah, it's not. My PC isn't a PlayStation 5.
Sure.
Alrighty, there's that. And then there's the absolute crime of Take-Two Interactive shutting down Roll 7. This is for those that don't know, Roll 7 are the developers behind, most famously behind Ollie Ollie series, and Ollie Ollie World, and more recently Rollerdrome. They also made Not a Hero, and one of my favourites, Laser League, while that was popular.
Loads of good stuff.
They haven't had a dud. Roll 7, I don't think they've had a duff game. Like all of them have been well received. It's like, hey, I might not have been, as hot on Rollerdrome as perhaps some other people were, but I get it. I see. I guess it's original and fun on some level, and a decent idea and well made. They did not deserve this outcome, and it's just another. I mean, this one hurts a bit because it's like, okay, the industry cutting jobs all over the place is a plague at the moment. It is bad, and that doesn't necessarily reflect the performance of the studios involved. But it's pretty rare for us to have a studio closure from a studio that has done nothing but good, right? I don't think that's happened particularly yet. We've had shutterings, obviously. We've had things like that, but they're usually from studios that have either a slightly checkered past or their last game didn't hit as big as it was expected to. Which leads us to the other half of this story, I suppose, and that's as part of this, they've also closed the current developers of Kerbal Space Program 2, whose name I've forgotten because
they might have. Like, they've announced 70 layoffs in Seattle, and the only office of a developer under 2K in Seattle is that one.
Right.
So it's like people are making that assumption of that link, but yeah.
Yeah, Intercept, that was it. They were supposedly the current custodians.
Yes.
Of
Kerbal
Space 2. But Kerbal Space 2 hasn't exactly set the world on fire since it went early access.
Well, since it came out, I guess.
Is it out, or is it still early access?
I still get that confused with like City Skylines and what happened there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, regardless of whether it's early access or not, it's not done. Like they never put in any of the colony building or interstellar stuff, so they weren't even close to what they promised. But there's been developers being like, no, we're going to continue working on it. Or I think there was even a publisher statement that was like,
oh, okay,
work is going to continue, but that's not very specific. That's like, we might hand it off to a random studio to put out whatever patches are left and then just leave it kind of statement.
So it's still early access for £45.
Yes.
And is still recently tagged as overwhelmingly negative, but that could be in reaction to this story.
Probably.
But mixed overall time.
Yeah, that's more likely.
Not a great outcome. And, don't think Intercept have been... I think Intercept was formed to work on this game.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they haven't got a history, which makes it a more understandable business decision. If I'm being brutal, that's just like that one makes sense to me that they might decide to do that. But Roll 7, they didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve that. Bad times.
Sad times.
Screw you, Take-Two. That's all I've really got for the news. It's like Sod McCall really happening.
Well,
here comes Zach's surprise news.
Yep. I mean, the Ghost Ship did their feature of Deep Rock and all their other stuff stream where they talked about the actual season 5 of Deep Rock. Which the only thing I really want to point out that is I found it weird that they basically said we've had to delay Rogue Core because we've been working on season 5.
Season 5 was delayed because they were working on
Rogue Core. Yeah, it's like that's what I thought. That's why I thought we were waiting so long for season 5 was because they were working on Rogue Core. But now they're saying they've been working on season 5 the whole time, and Rogue Core's got delayed.
I can only assume that their division of labour isn't working as efficiently as they first thought.
Well, they have said, I think they said before and in this stream, that they don't like the division of labour, which is why they were committing to working on one or the other, except each time they've said they're working on the other one.
Except they're weirdly flip-flopping between them. It's like, we're going to have a month on this, and then have a month. That must be weird.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that is what's happened or whether they never did stop working on either of them.
Right.
Like they said they were going to and just didn't. And so they've been dividing their labour the whole time.
Yeah, maybe it's just been a bit of like a Valve situation, right? Like, you can work on what you want, right? You can move your desk, put it in the elevator, bring it to where you want to work.
But, I mean...
That's still a thing. Do you reckon Valve still does that?
I mean, for their Steam developers.
Yeah.
Well, they're making games that much.
I think that supposedly leaked, right? That employee handbook from when that was.
I mean, that was when they were still making games. Kind of.
It was like in the Portal 2 era. It was Orange Box time, right? All of that info came out. So
there must have been plenty of people working on Steam at the time. Yeah. That must have. That's the assumption that you'd rather be working on a cool video game than working on Steam infrastructure. But maybe people were into working on Steam. I don't know.
Maybe. That was the Dirk news. And then the only other random bit of news, that, just because it appears in my Steam news feed timeline, is 7 Days to Die is finally getting out of early access after 10 whole years.
Yeah, that is nuts.
And the price is going up.
Oh, all right.
A lot. From like $25 to $45.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, that is bad idea because that game is probably not even worth that much. Even if 1.0 turns out to be like super finalized, clears up all the bugs and all that stuff. I mean, I haven't played it in a while, but.
Oh, you had it?
Oh, yeah, I've played it tons. We've talked about it on the podcast tons.
Am I getting confused with something else? No, 7 Days. I think I am. I think in my head, like, when people talk about 7 Days to Die, like, for some reason, I immediately associate that with like one of those like survival multiplayer games.
Yes, you're thinking of,
yeah, exactly. What Dead by Daylight or something.
Well, Dead by Daylight would be one of them. Yes,
yeah, something like that.
But yeah, 7 Days to Die is just like the thing is this entire time. I think up until launch. I think it's still an alpha. Like, they've never called it a beta.
Oh, weird.
I mean, which is, I guess, good on them for not calling things that aren't finished a beta, but...
Oh, I guess, yeah. So I guess they've just got to the point where they now believe they're feature complete, but they don't need a beta phase.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just always been up, so it's...
That is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, yeah.
I can't remember what the last, like, alpha number was. I think it was, like, 28 or something.
I mean, yeah, arguably this is the correct way to do it if you want to be strict to what that terminology is supposed to mean.
But yes, I mean, it's been 10 years and like it's had its moment of glory almost. Like must have been like,
it wasn't long ago, right?
It was fairly long ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. There was a time when like it got super popular because of Achievement Hunter playing it.
Oh,
that was probably the peak of its like social media presence or whatever.
Right, so I was about to say my awareness of it is only recent, right? Like I would, when I say recent, I mean the last few years. So, like sure. I wouldn't have said I'd know. It would have been anywhere near my radar 10 years ago when this was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it had a period of popularity before the Achievement Hunter one, like a few years before that. And then Achievement Hunter played it again after that, after they made it more popular. They came back when one of the larger updates in the alpha happened. But yeah, it's been a few years since that.
Achievement Hunter has that much sway, hey?
Well, they did at the time. So yeah, I guess I'll probably end up playing it again when it comes out to see if it seems like a finished product at all.
Yeah. Have they still got a roadmap at that point, or are they just them just saying we're done?
Yeah, that's the question. Is it going to just continue to update regardless?
Well,
is the 1.0 just an excuse to raise the price for no reason?
Well, yeah. Have they got a publisher, or is it all self-ran?
No, I think it's self-published.
Right.
As far as I remember.
Are they in trouble and that's why they need to do this? Or
Well, after 10 years, you'd imagine what has even been going on.
I don't know. Well, RIP, 7 Days to Die, because a price hike like that is probably going to kill you, except for your already existing player base.
And of course, they are doing the pre-price hike sale where they're like, if you don't want to pay the full price, buy it now when it's slightly cheaper. Actually,
10%
it's
off?
quite a lot cheaper. It's 76% off at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty good. That's like a Steam sale bargain you rarely see these days.
But that makes the price hike even more this is...
Wait, is it 75% off its
current price?
Oh, wow.
I think so, yeah.
So that's like what? Like that's going to be in the 90s.
Yeah. It's this is looking even more suspicious and risky. But, like I say, at this point, I feel like they've probably made most of the sales that game's ever going to get. So maybe it doesn't matter at all.
Is it like a very brief Hail Mary or something? It'd be like, can we make an announcement and get some sales out of it? And then
get some bonus sales just from the interest around it going 1.0.
And then we'll drop it back or make a big deal of it on sales for a year or something. And then it'll just float back to its
potentially
original price.
We'll see. Maybe they've been working on it super hard in secret, and it's going to be a ridiculous 1.0 or something.
Yeah, maybe it's a big old launch after all.
I wouldn't bet on it, judging by their 10 years of updates.
I mean, that's not how these games go, is it? That's just not how it works.
No.
Or maybe Multiverses will have that when it comes back after its year hiatus or whatever.
Yeah. That's all the news that I got. The extra news.
Good. I mean, we're coming up to not E3 season. Microsoft have announced when their showcases are going to be in June, so not far away from that.
When did it used to be? I thought it was around now, wasn't it?
June into July usually, wasn't it?
June
yeah, it was late May, early June was my always understanding it.
Okay,
sort of the start of summer, right?
What have they got planned for?
I don't
Xbox showcase.
Actually, I don't really know what's going on. We've got there's some long-term projects that we haven't heard of from a long time, like that garden-looking game that Rare were working on that I can't remember the name of. We haven't seen that for a long time. We haven't seen what's happened to the Perfect Dark project, although that sounds like that's been in dev hell since they announced that.
That trailer, whenever it was,
there wasn't a game at that point. There wasn't a game. There was,
yeah,
absolutely. But apparently that project is still going. So, maybe we'll see something like that. But other than that, I'm a little bit lost. I think they'll announce Gears 6, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to launch this year anymore. They make it sounds like Coalition has been helping with other projects around Microsoft, so they haven't necessarily been all in on making the next Gears game,
right?
This entire time. So I'm doubtful we'll get Gears 6 this year, which makes my Hail Mary pick on the Fantasy League now seem a little foolish. But that's the point in a Hail Mary pick. We've got, it's got to be something that we don't know about. That's slightly tricky.
And no inkling of the Zach's Hail Mary pick, but when?
No, Switch 2 sounds like it's been delayed.
Yeah, Switch 2 is highly rumored to be. Well, maybe this time next year, or maybe Marchish next year, right. That kind of window now. So
when would they announce it then, if it's that far away?
I mean, maybe summer.
I mean, that would make sense. The E3 time of this year to launch next year. That's basically what they did with the original.
Yeah, it's the exact same cadence they did with the Switch. It's similar cadence to the original Wii as well. Yeah. I think that had the same sort of 9-month-ish.
I mean, that's just how that works because of E3, but the launch window, Nintendo are the one who does the early year releases, really, for some reason.
Yes, it's been their thing for a few consoles, a March release.
It could be Switch 2 with a new Mario March next year, potentially.
Yes, I would.
And in which case...
They can't really... I mean, they can afford to wait. Nintendo are still printing money, but I don't know, we would like, that the world would like a Switch.
The world would like
Before then.
any goddamn information about what the fuck Nintendo's doing in general at this point.
Because what else have they actually got to come out, though? Like, there's that Luigi's Mansion 2 remake.
Sure.
Or remaster.
But they'll have a whole slate for next year. Then, if they have a Switch 2, they'll have Mario and they'll have Metroid Prime.
Well, maybe, but like it's not like
maybe Mario Kart 9.
It's not
maybe.
like Nintendo don't release consoles with like one game essentially.
Yeah, it's true, but
yeah, and there's been a history of that, but. I mean, the Switch launch is never going to be beaten, though, right? Like Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2,
Mario
Breath of the
wasn't
Wild.
launched.
I mean, neither was Breath of the Wild. They were pretty close, right?
Breath of the Wild was launched.
Oh, was it actually?
Literally launch day.
yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I thought it was the other way around. I thought Odyssey was.
No, Mario was like December, right, of that year.
Was it? I thought they were not far apart. I don't think Odyssey was far after launch if it wasn't launch.
It wasn't launch, I don't think. Otherwise, I would have got it dating. I think.
I feel like Odyssey was after the E3 period of that year because I feel like they showed it again.
Oh, you might be right, actually. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Might have been November.
But I don't think it was that late.
Anyway.
But yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they had a lot of things line up for that year. There was some rumor that the reason the Switch was delayed to next year was because the Mario game isn't ready.
I guess that sort of makes sense. I guess
so. Like they didn't want to put Switch 2 out without
a game.
I
think
that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, the hardware may be finalized pretty much.
That was the rumor, anyway. But whether or not that's true or not, we'll probably never know.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's correct, yeah.
I know, you're right. It was much later than I thought. It was October.
Yeah.
Late October at that. Oh, I really thought that was a summer game. I sort of I probably have
you think of it as a summer game because it's a Mario game, which feels like summer.
I think I've got a fake memory in my head of playing it that year, right? Because that was the year one of the years when I was still traveling around for work, right? And I sort of vaguely remember having my Switch up north, playing Mario Odyssey on it. Yeah, interesting. Ugh, memories. Ugh, let down again. Let down again by my own stupid brain ways. There you go.
Well, that's the news for sure.
It is indeed the news.
It's time for what you've been playing. Starting with dramatic pause. Rob again.
Yeah, let's do the thing I normally do. Where let's talk about the things I've been playing. I haven't been playing as much Penny's Big Breakaway as I expected to.
Right.
I do really still like that game, but I feel like it's one of those games I can only really. I think I mentioned before, I can only really play in short bursts. It feels best to me when I play it in a short session rather than a lengthy session. I haven't finished the campaign yet because I do keep going back to earlier levels and replaying them to try and get the score targets, which I'm not finding very easy. But it is kind of fun to do that. But I keep getting slightly hung up, I think, or slightly frustrated by some of the ways those controls work, right? Because if you get in a bit of a panic, you're not going to do well. It requires a bit of discipline to fully master how you're moving around. And there are definitely times, I think I've mentioned before, where the curse of the 3D platformer and the camera definitely becomes a bit of a problem. It's like you don't have control of the camera in this game. It is always trying to position itself to a suitable location. And in fairness, it's normally that's not a problem ever. But every now and then you have that sort of perspective problem where it's like I can't quite tell if I'm landing on that platform or not, or my drop shadow isn't quite the shadow directly below where your character is isn't quite obvious enough for you to be able to tell that you're going to land where you think you're going to land. And I fall afoul of that every now and then. and I get a bit frustrated with it as a result. Especially if you're going for like as you say, if you're going for the score targets and you make a mistake and you're just like, oh no, got to restart this run. So I think I'm right near the end of that in the story anyway. But generally, I think it's a pretty well put together package. And it's mostly glitch free. I wouldn't say it's glitch free. I have encountered a few periodically, but they've never been super annoying. Just little things here and there. But it's pretty good, and I do dig the music in that game. It's pretty cool. So yeah, there'll be more on that when I finish it, and I can report a little more on it. I have, however, because it's a suitable mindless game, I suppose you can just play it and not really think too hard, and that is Lego 2K Drive. I've finished the story on that thing, and gone through and basically been trying to. Anything I saw, I was doing that thing where it's an open world racing game, right? And so you're doing that thing where you're driving around, and if you see something, you go for it. Like, I've not been like ignoring anything I've seen. Sure. So like, oh, there's a collectible up there. How on earth do I get up there? Let's figure that out for the next half an hour. trying to get this car up a mountain somehow to figure out how I'm supposed to get this thing. And on the one hand, that sounds more fun than I think it is, which is the other hand. I didn't phrase that particularly well. There is a sort of inherent skill on show in the Lego games, right? Where they are ultimately probably the most collectathon games you could imagine. That is their thing. There's just stuff littered about the place. Figure out how you get it, and that is the game. And I think Lego City Undercover basically did that the best. I haven't played all of the Lego games, but I think they did a really good job there, and I've never been quite so impressed with all the other attempts. And I think that's true here as well, but that's made slightly more awkward by the fact that, it's a racing game this time, and that the car physics are occasionally pretty janky. They don't quite necessarily behave as you'd expect, because it's a kart racing game at heart. So it's got some, the physics aren't meant to be physicsy, but then when you're trying to actually jump around the level and trying to wedge your car in a certain way or drive up in this awkward place, you can make this mildly awkward jump to hit this target. The physics can get in the way, and that's made extra awkward by the fact that you might not be driving the car the game expects you to drive. Like, if you're driving a massive car, because it's Lego, right? There's people have made, or the game provides you with cars of various sizing and various builds. If you have a monster truck, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to drive it along this tiny ass twig or wedge it up this particular stretch. So then you have to go to the loadout and perhaps consider taking a different car up this particular thing, which meant I just spent the entire game using the lawnmower effectively to do the off-roading stuff. And generally small vehicles, because they were easier to go get the collectibles with, and things like that, which is a little bit against the whole Lego ethos of just drive what you want, man. Just drive what you want. It's all good. It's fine, is I think what I'm trying to say. There is nothing inherently terrible about it, but there's nothing that makes you go, wow, that was super fun or super cool. I do think they've put a lot of effort into the Lego aesthetic, how the bricks look and how they use a lot of screen space reflection effects to make them all look really shiny. They look like Lego. They're doing that. They're doing the Lego bit right, as you would expect, I suppose, after this amount of time. I do kind of think it's a bit. It always sort of strikes me as a bit strange that it's Lego in a real environment, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's the thing they've always done, really. Yeah. And I guess it's because making everything out of bricks is probably really hard.
Yeah. And also, I suppose kids playing with Lego toys in their house environment. They don't necessarily have a whole world made of Lego.
Yeah, and you're going to really struggle to make sweeping turns, right?
Exactly.
With a bit of Lego. So
without
the fact that
base plates, they don't do base plates anymore, I don't think.
Oh, right. Yeah, so the fact that they're on like sand and grass and road is like actual road isn't too distracting, but it's I don't know, it's a little bit at first. They try and like soften the edges a little bit in places by like, oh, we'll make the skies so the clouds are kind of square and blocky.
I mean, it's interesting they don't go full on micro machines and make it like kitchen tables and stuff, but they never do that.
Well, because the world itself is weird in that regard as well. Like there are some elements of it where you think it's like, oh, they're scaling it to the Lego pieces, so like where the grass is and things like that. And then every now and then you'll come across this just absolutely humongous ass flower that's just like way too big for the state. Or there's an area in in Prospecto Valley, one of the tracks is called Cat Scratch Freeway, and it's just got absolutely enormous like cat scratching posts and balls of yarn everywhere that are enormous, but there's no giant cat. Like all the cats are just Lego pieces and they're tiny, right? So the spectacle of the giant cat stuff in the level doesn't make sense, or it doesn't feel like it fits. It's a cool little area. Cats are cool, but like it doesn't necessarily come together, and that might also be a limitation of the fact they've only really got 3 main areas that you're only really working in 3 biomes, I suppose. You've got the green, the sand, and the haunted. Because those are the 3 they picked. And then the DLC added the snow, so there's a whole bunch of like extra tracks in the snow area that are totally optional. You don't have to do any of those. And as far as I could tell, they didn't turn up on the online play, which I also tried, which is also perfectly fine. It's functional, and I didn't really have a problem. I had a couple of physicsy problems where the game seemed to lock up a bit whilst everyone else was moving and I was stationary, which was a bit weird. Seemed a bit unfair. But for the most part, the online works, and it works well. It's just that the racing itself is just functionally okay. It just doesn't wow you. There's something there's some magic sauce missing that like games that like Mario Kart and Sonic Racing Transformed found. There's a feel to them, and I don't know if that's because it's like the tracks are all unique and don't have to be put in the open world, and so they can be bespokely designed and have bespoke gimmicks. Probably is that, but generally, like there's just something a little missing from the actual moment to moment gameplay here. Go check it, and like as I always say, go check it on Game Pass. What have you got to lose? But it's not the best of the best.
Lego 2K.
Lego 2K Drive. Also, it's got achievements for getting actually driving. Like there's an achievement called I think it's 3K. You get the 3K drive for some reason, and it's like drive 3,000 kilometers, and I've only slightly pipped on that. It seems like a really long way in this game world. But then also there's another one. Oh no, not 3 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers or something. Like by whatever scale they're using, who knows? But then there's also a 6K drive achievement that's even more mental, and it's like, no one in their right mind should play this game that much. So I'm probably done with it. I'm not going to go back and 100% it because that's madness. But I've done a lot of stuff. It's Lego 2K Drive. What I want to talk about that's new and exciting and on Game Pass. Harold Halibut came out.
Oh.
And I've been playing that.
Okay. I got 3 points from that on my fantasy league.
Oh, what was it? Scored a 73?
Yeah.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
Because... Right, so the game, there's no secrets here. The game draws you in with its, to be frank, pretty phenomenal visual style.
Unique, really, for a game.
yeah, it's a really good look. Like just like sort of slightly, like I don't know. I think back to how like Little Big Planet started doing that whole like it's like constructed out of cardboard and things around here. But like, just imagine that the stuff being constructed here was like really good quality dioramas, like really well thought through. Like the walls are still made of like tin foil and stuff, but it's all like very carefully crafted and properly cut out. And the cardboard is nice, but all the texture work feels like it's all been hand drawn onto surfaces. And the characters, which look and animate like puppets, have all actually been built at some point, and this is just them scanning. There's a real naturalistic, real feel to the look of this game, even though it's all sort of, in this kind of craft style. They've somehow nailed that, and there are moments where you just look at it and go, wow, that really does look like it's been filmed, not like it's actually being rendered, because of that choice. And it's quite impressive. I mean, I wouldn't say it's perfect. It definitely has problems. The animation isn't always slick. There's definitely places where it like clips. Well, I've seen characters like snap to the animation they're supposed to be in rather than the one that they're currently in. There's glitches on. I'm playing the Xbox version. There's occasional glitches on some textures and some effects that take you out of it a little bit. Corals in particular seem to be quite flickery randomly. So there's something not quite right going on there. But all in all, I think the presentation side of the game is pretty phenomenal. And that's where my out and out praise has to end for this thing, because it's a bit of it's a weird one. I guess you'd expect that from a game called Harold Halibut. But let me carry on with the praise. I like its setting. I think its setting is cool. So not to go too spoilery, it's about a space colony ship, effectively, that left Earth a few generations ago to search it for a new planet, because it was believed, sort of in the Cold War-y sort of era, because it was believed that Earth was doomed, and that it didn't have much longer to survive. So they sent people to the stars to find somewhere else to be. And that they thought they had found a good planet, but they entered the solar system, got hit by some gnarly solar winds, and crash landed on this planet that just happens to be a water world, as far as they know. So hence the aquatic nature of this thing. You're basically on a ship that is now in pieces, but the people survived and they're still living on this like underwater environment and making do. All managed under the watchful eye of the All Water Corporation, who is now basically the overlord of this place. And you're a janitor / handyman type guy called Harold, who's just doing his dailies. And then things happen, but things don't happen for a really long time. It's got to be said, that is an incredibly slow open to this game, and it's and it's quite, well, I'm trying not to use the word boring, but it kind of is. Like, it's really slow and really uninteresting, and the characters aren't hugely. What's the word? I mean,
like compelling.
Yeah, they're not compelling because they're almost everyone seems real enough. Like, it's not like I find any of the characters unbelievable, but it's almost too believable, right? They're almost too normal. Everyone's quite nice. There's not really a lot of antagonism or conflict or anything, but none of the personalities are bigger than life, right? They're all just a nice group getting on, but in a very sort of like, I guess, idyllic, almost religious text kind of way. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of like too utopic kind of relationship that everyone has. with each. There's no like, there's not so much joking around. There's not so much messing, and when it is, it's all very light-hearted and tame, and it's just not very interesting to watch. It's like if Big Brother was filled with normal people.
Yeah, you need some kind of tension and drama, right? And something like that.
And it takes a really long time to get to any kind of event of interest. And the pacing is kind of strange at times as well, where there was a bit where, it seems like it's taking a very long time to get somewhere. Then suddenly it kind of goes through like a few time skips in relatively quick succession. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Oh, but I would have liked to actually play through some of what's happening in this time skip. That looks like that could have been a fun time, or a time to have some comedy. But no, they don't do that. I don't know what else to say about it because I can't say too much without spoiling what narrative there is. But I don't know how they've done it. I don't know how they've taken an interesting setting and just wrapped it in incredibly boring writing.
Especially when you put so much effort into making the
look.
Visuals
yeah, I mean,
they are
this must have taken effort, and like I forget how long the dev cycle was for this, but it is long. Like it's been in dev for a very, very long time.
They must have really believed in it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some nice quirky like elements to it. Yeah, like as I say, the presentation is clearly where a lot of the effort is, because they've got these cutaways. They do these. Because they sort of left, I guess, in the Cold War or something, like, well, none of the TV aesthetic is particularly well done. Like the all water ident that comes on the television is like all wobbly and warped like a bad cassette player, like, and then the graphics are bad and things like that. It's a lot of the adverts on TV are hand drawn. It's kind of funny in that way. There's an awful lot has gone into this. I personally like when they do this. These some sections where there's an overhead projector in the scene and someone interacts with it. It just looks like they're just playing a video clip over the overhead projector of someone's hand, like reaching in to change what's being displayed on the overhead, and it looks just really
cool.
Reinforces that whole like this is a diorama. This is a hand built world kind of effect.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, all that stuff is really neat, but like there is no drive. There's nothing.
Damn it.
There's nothing. I'm going to see it through because I have to at this point. I have absolutely no idea how far through I am, but there's an achievement in the achievement list called Slow Bro because it's developed by Slow Bros.
Right. Good name.
Yeah.
Appropriate.
There's an achievement for taking the game at a leisurely pace and finishing it in 15 hours. And they explicitly say, like, this is a leisurely pace. So, it's like the opposite of a speed run. It's a slow run.
That must kind of suck for anyone who's not done it that slow. Like when you do, just leave it running for a while.
Yeah, I guess you have to just leave it somewhere and idle, and see what happens. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a bit of a bummer, but I guess you could perhaps tell from the trailer because the trailer doesn't necessarily go into any story beats, and it's
but that might imply that there's going to be something dramatic happen. Like that would imply that it's possible that it's setting up. The reason everything seems normal and boring is because there's going to be a dramatic twist and everything's going to get fucked.
Oh, it is possible. There are a couple of twisty moments relatively early on but everyone's just kind of whatever. It's like you'd think there'd be a bigger deal out of it or something, but people are just so nice in this one. And it doesn't help as well that Harold himself is a moron.
Naturally,
he's in his 20s apparently, although
it doesn't look like it.
He doesn't look like it, and that comes up actually at one point later in the game.
But that's just setting up for another twist of some kind where he's some kind of clone, or he aged quickly, or for some reason.
I mean,
all these cool ideas that you could fit into that narrative.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that stuff. One of those things you just said is very heavily hinted at, but there's not been any real semblance of that being a thing.
This is going to be like, either it is going to set up for the most ridiculous twist, but there's not going to be enough time for it, or like none of this is going to be true and it's just going to be boring all the way through and it's going to be really weird.
Is it an anime?
Yeah, exactly. The last act of the whole world will explode for some reason.
Yeah. And it's also throwing that sort of like, oh, hey, do you love corporations, right? Like, and it's like, no. And it's like, well, okay, corporations are stupid. It's doing that sort of element to it as well, because of course it is.
You would have thought that would be a thing that would make sense on a generational colony ship, like corporations. That's not really that's not something that survives into a small number of people, you wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, maybe. Right, yeah, it's still what this is, right? And then it's still capitalism on some level. And there's an underlying mystery. Like, no, this adds up. And it's like, okay, how does it not add up? How do we not, what are we actually investigating here? No, we've got this other thing to deal with. Okay. So I've got a cleaner filtration system now, have I? Okay, wonderful. I'm delivering the post now, am I? Okay. Go to point A, go to point B. Go back to point A, go to point C. What a weird thing. That's me. That's all I've been doing.
Cool. Who's that? I downloaded yesterday the stupid Magic the Gathering Arena client.
Oh, yes.
To give that a try. Yeah. It's pretty good. I've only just started it or whatever, but like it seems like you get quite a bit out of it for free, as far as I can tell. Presumably it's all so they can hook you, I guess.
Right, yeah.
But still, like, as far as I can tell, like, it gives you access to, like, I don't know, like 10 starter decks in the standard format or whatever, which obviously is rotating. So presumably when new sets come out, they must have to change the starter decks every time or whatever so that it remains in the standard format.
Right, yeah.
But you can play those in a event or whatever against people who are also playing those starter decks or whatever. So it's like a, starter zone or whatever where, and presumably, that way you don't have to go into the wide world where you're just going to get crushed or whatever by people with the super custom decks. And you could just hang around, and it quite quickly introduces you to like playing against people, because it doesn't really have any real good AI of note or bots that you can play against, only the tutorial stuff really. But it's quite,
right, so it's not like the 2014 Magic the Gathering games that they tried on Xbox.
No, right? It's not like those. No, I mean, it has a decent tutorial, and it's got a little character to guide you through who is, slightly aggressively chippy, but not too bad. Not too crazy dirt rally, whatever. But even those just starter decks, they're getting you used to whatever the cards are in standard, I guess, that you're likely to come across or whatever. And like, yeah, it's quite a bit to get. And it is Magic. It's not too compromised. I think you can. I'm wondering what is the things that, like, it. Obviously, you have a time limit, so like.
Right. You can't take forever thinking about your turn. It's got to flow. Yeah.
Exactly, it's got to flow, but that does seem to work. It does seem to be generous enough to not be annoying waiting for somebody else, but also not be too pressured that you can't like read the cards.
Right. Yeah.
Although it does help, But it does seem you can like when the starter deck mode or whatever, which is presumably it builds you up. Like there's a tutorial, and then there's like. Try a deck of each color, like mono decks, right? That's the next one. And it starts you out against AI in preset scenarios with each of those mono color decks just to get you used to the concepts, even though I already knew most of them, obviously. And then the last one in each of those is play against a real person. But you don't even really notice that you're playing against a real person. It does it that well.
Right, yeah.
And you don't really interact with the person that you're playing with apart from playing. Like I haven't even figured out how you use the preset responses to say like good game or whatever.
Spam emojis.
But you can't do very much, which is quite good actually, because
that's probably sensible.
Yeah, and it's quite. I think they've made it so it's quite difficult to grief, basically. So
yeah, Hearthstone was kind of the same, right? Like, we're going back like almost a decade now.
It's probably copying everything that Hearthstone did, but for Magic, I presume. I think maybe that's what this game is. It's just the Magic the game, which has been around since 1994, plus like all the gameplay that Blizzard did to make Hearthstone good, that they just probably copied all of that, which good for them. I mean, that's probably the right thing to do.
I mean,
and that makes for a kind of a wicked combo potentially. So I'll see how it goes. But and I was wondering how to play it on my Mac, and you can get it through Steam, but not on the Mac. So you have to use the Epic thing for the Mac version for some reason, but that was easy enough to just run it through the Epic launcher or whatever, and it plays fine on a laptop. For what extent there's 3D effects or whatever.
Right,
obviously, so it's quite a light one.
So it's like a free-to-play client, but you log in obviously with a Magic account, I assume, or a Wizards.
Yes, you use a Wizards account. So
it doesn't matter which system you're playing on, your account comes with. And then
I think so. Nice. The only weird thing about Arena is there's no client available on PlayStation currently.
Yeah,
you can't play it.
I was about to say I don't think there is a consoleized version of it. I don't know.
No, and I'm not sure why, because you could do it. Obviously, it's easier with a mouse.
Is it mobile?
I don't know. Maybe you can play it on iPad.
It would make sense on iPad. That was for the brief time I was playing Hearthstone. The iPad was the place to do it.
It is available on iOS, on presumably only iPad.
Can you imagine reading that text on a phone?
Yeah, presumably it only works on tablets, but it looks like it works on Android tablets as well.
It's interesting, because other than Marvel Snap, I don't know that there's been really a hit like Hearthstone, right, in the card space.
Yeah, obviously Valve tried, didn't they?
With Artifact, yeah.
With Artifact.
And I think League of Legends, I don't know what happened to the League of Legends one, Legends of Runeterra, because that seemed very Hearthstone-like.
Right.
And I don't know whether that went, but I don't know how successful that was. You never hear of it.
Because I presume, I never really played those games, but I presume Hearthstone had the advantage of being designed specifically for digital from the off. Whereas Magic
and it was pretty simple in many ways compared to what Magic the Gathering is.
Obviously, Magic has some pretty complex rules, and you can go, as seen in that, we were watching some YouTube videos of some high-level Magic Arena play, and obviously, if you go infinite, it starts to break down the client sometimes.
Yeah,
there's
a few ways to crash it.
Yeah, but that makes sense. I think they seem to have done a decent enough job, and presumably they're constantly improving it in that regard. But if you're playing a normal fair game, especially with these starter decks, it's fine. So the only thing I've sort of so far discovered is that I think this is the way that the game works, and maybe this is different for Hearthstone and stuff. But the key thing about Magic is the consistency of the decks, in that a normal deck, it's pretty much, there's a big element of luck in what you draw and what you draw when. And the most successful Magic players and decks are designed mostly around making it work consistently to eliminate that luck element as much as possible.
Always my biggest frustration. I could never.
Well, it's the same. It's the same. So playing with the starter decks, it's sometimes you can't win just because of what you draw when there's still the thing that back then with the normal kind of deck that you construct in Magic is that if you can have a bad draw, where you don't have enough land or don't have spells, or you have the spells which are high on the curve, like the expensive ones which you don't need at the start, and then later on you can draw when you need the big dragon, you're drawing the lands and the right and the minis. Or you can just get lucky and you can draw everything exactly on curve and get the perfect things every time. So it's just the same as ever.
It's any deck builder ever.
But I think what makes it a success is it's quite fast because of the time limits and everything resolving. It helps you by highlighting what you can play with the mana you have and stuff like that. It's got quite a clever system that I haven't quite figured out to let you hold the priority when you want to. So if you know that you want to respond with an instant that you have, to something they do, you can kind of put a block on so that it doesn't auto advance, and you can stop it, and then stuff like that. So there's you can kind of control.
Oh, I see. So if you're happy to just crack through it, you can turn that on. But if not, they will stop and wait for you to read and pass what's just happened.
Because otherwise, it's pretty good at knowing what you can do, but it doesn't know everything. So, it doesn't try to know everything. So if you've got an instant in hand that you could play, it will constantly is asking you to pass priority,
right? Yeah.
Instead of playing it, but it makes it fair. It's not super obvious, but you kind of get used to it, how it's highlighting what it's doing.
Yeah.
So there's two things to get used to. One is when it's prompting you for something and what phase of the game you're in, and the other is when to know that it's actually your opponent is making a decision. It hasn't got a thing where it's this person's. It's not immediately obvious always.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to be doing the thing?
I seem to remember that was one of the things that I found very confusing in the consoleized versions of Magic. The previous attempts, I suppose, because it did the same thing. It would always try and say "Oh, you could do this. Do you want to? Or do you want to just carry on?" But I don't think it did a really good job of explaining the. Excuse me. The stack or anything like that, or when you could play. So I'd plan for things. Oh, my voice is going.
Apparently,
it's going. But I'd plan for things and then try it, and then it wouldn't give me the opportunity. Right, the prompt wouldn't come up, and it'd be what did I miss?
I've definitely fucked it up already a few times, but I suppose that's just how it goes. You do that in real life. When you're playing with the paper Magic, you fuck it up all the time. Well, I do anyway, or misplay it or whatever. But I think at least I can kind of see what's happened when something happens that I didn't quite expect. Sometimes it stacks cards on top of each other, which is the best way to represent it visually. But then I didn't notice that I was being attacked by two things instead of one, and stuff like that. And you have to you learn to be aware of how it presents things. And a couple of times I just misread the card, right? I was like, what?
Sure.
That didn't, I'm an idiot. Stuff like that. But yeah, it seems like a pretty good approximation of it, honestly. And it's also quite fast to play. And the key thing is it's fun even when you lose. Depending.
That's the challenging part.
Yeah. But that's definitely the case that there's still that with those decks, there's still that big element of luck. So I'm presuming once you get into it, you can start trying to make decks that are consistent, like the good ones, and that's when presumably they will start hooking you with.
I was about to ask,
buy this pack or whatever.
Have you seen how any of that works, or do you literally have to buy boosters and it follows the same as the actual real cards?
I mean, I've only just started, but when you win a game with one of those starter decks, of which there's one for every color combination, I think, 2 color combination, then you automatically own all the cards from that deck. So you get that deck when you win, which is already quite a lot. So you could take any of those starter decks and start modifying it to be your, one of your main decks. So that's already quite good. So you get quite a lot of cards for free that way. And then because they contain they contain a rare or whatever, right, in each of those decks. So you could start building around those. And then I got 2 free boosters from the most recent expansion that's come out recently, for real.
Right.
The Thunder Junction or whatever. Thunder Junction. It's like a Western themed one or whatever. But I haven't looked at I think you get the most valuable thing that you earn, I think, as far as I can tell, are wild cards that you can resolve into a card that you want. Obviously, that's incredibly valuable. So I gather
are they literally anything in the current?
I think you get a wild card with a certain rarity. So you can resolve this into into whatever common you want in standard or something like that. Or obviously, if you have a wild card which is a rare or a mythic rare, then that's really worth a lot because you can choose what you want to build your deck. So my understanding is that you get 3 wild cards, for free when you start your account, and what you should do is not waste them because of course at the start you don't know what you want or you don't know anything, so you might just go, oh, I'll resolve these, and it's like, no, don't waste the wild cards. I think that's right. So we'll see, but I'm curious to at what point it will start, either getting frustratingly hard because you lose all the time, or start hooking you to spend money to presumably It's got I think there's a thing where they want you to log in, and I think the thing is if you get 4 wins every day, which obviously is a lot, then that's the most efficient way to earn stuff for free. Something like that. I haven't figured it out yet because I only just started. But anyway, it seems decent, runs well, seems to be the game, which is just a good game inherently, has all the art and everything, and there's a decent level of complexity even in the standard starter decks, to be starting with. So yeah, pretty impressed by the way that it's put together.
Nice.
It's definitely an improvement on those ones you mentioned. I'm trying to think I did.
Yeah, I mean, those had a number of pretty key limitations, right? You could only work within the decks that it presented you, and
I think I had that in mind.
Modifications to them, rather than.
I think I just assumed that the game now would be like that,
right?
That's why I never bothered. But this seems to give you a lot, frankly, compared to that.
It's a little bit like the original Windowsy Magic one, then, because that really did give you full freedom over what cards it.
Well, I think that something like that also exists. So I think it's confusing because there's 2.
Oh.
Let me see.
Oh, wait, so there is a full-on hyper real, I suppose, where you actually are buying digital versions of the cards and it's just that.
Yeah. That's my understanding, is there's 2 different clients or whatever, and this is the flashy modern one. But there's also one with less restrictions, which is more like that old classic Windows one, I think. Wish I could find the name.
I can still sort of remember the sound effects from that Windowsy one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is really old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. There is might be Magic.
I think it's just called Magic the Gathering Online.
Yeah,
Magic Online. So 2002. So that's obviously a 22-year-old game.
Must be tricky though, right? To have introduced Arena for some reason, and then it's well, what's actually going to happen to Magic Online? And if you've got super into that, how do you actually?
Yeah. So the Arena is presumably what they learned from Hearthstone, which they didn't have those lessons, I guess, for Magic Online back in the day. So
I'm surprised they didn't just somehow find a way of merging Magic Online into Magic Arena. So any cards you had in that old set aren't dead. They're in there, but you might not be able to use them because of the what is considered standard or whatever. But
as far as I know, they're totally separate, and they must have made a conscious choice to just be
no, we're doing a hard cut.
Yeah, we're doing a hard cut. Yeah. Which maybe seems like it was probably it's hard to tell for me.
Business-wise, of course you would, right? Because those same people might go into Arena and then start spending their money again.
Exactly. So you have to rebuy the same cards. Yeah, I guess that's annoying. But anyway, this is definitely pretty easy going for... I guess I'm not a newcomer because I played the paper game back in the day, but I guess they want... I think this would be a reasonable experience if you'd never played Magic at all. But because I have, it's a bit easier for me to ease into it. So yeah, seems good. Free to play, obviously, just not on consoles. And I'll report back. I'll probably play a bit more.
Good. Get your 4 wins.
I don't know if I'm going to get 4 wins a day, but we'll see. It's hard to tell. I can't tell if it's in this starter deck mode. Presumably the people playing it are just people the same as you who are just starting, I guess.
Oh, right.
Because it seems fine and you can win if you get the lucky draw.
Right, so it's not making it clear about any sort of rankings or anything in this bracket?
Stage. Not at this stage. But presumably it does as you go into it, then it becomes rankings or brackets or whatever, which is what
some sort of skill rating.
Yeah. But it's nice to be able to play the decks on it in a low stakes thing, because the easiest way is to just play them and see what cards you get draw instead of reading all the cards in the deck list. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. Zach, what have you been playing these past couple of weeks?
Well, I've mainly only been playing Captain of Industry again because I finally finished a run, got that rocket launched.
Got over the grind.
Well, so there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about it. So related to the end game, I guess, is that the top end of that tech tree is kind of pointless. It's not. I don't know if it's just that they're not done adding things. So it's it's just sparse. There should be more stuff there. But a lot of the stuff right at that top end is not really necessary to finish the game in any way. Apart from the fact that you need to unlock some of these techs to unlock the rocket.
Right.
But you don't need to necessarily build any of these techs. So I finally built the nuclear power plant and the second version, and I unlocked the third version but never built it. I just looked at it and figured out how it should theoretically work. But even the first tier of that, I probably could have got away with not actually building. I could have used solar panels, or I could have just expanded my coal-fired power plant some more, even though my power plant was mostly fired by wood. Because it was, this is another problem of the balance of that game seeming strange in some ways anyway, where I just I was making enough wood that my power plant could run on wood, and therefore I wasn't using coal, and therefore I had tons of coal, and therefore my smelters were running on coal because I had all this excess coal, and I wasn't worried about coal. And then therefore I didn't see the need to upgrade to the arc furnaces, which use less coal for the smelting, but run on power instead, which you therefore might want the nuclear power station to run because you need more power.
Right.
So it's just if you're efficient with your infrastructure at this coal phase where your power plant is coal and the smelters are coal, there's not really any reason for you to want to move up to the nuclear/arc furnace version. Because it's even the arc furnaces, they use the same amount of workers. They use less coal because they're powered by electricity instead. They use computing power, which I guess is kind of a new resource.
Power of the cloud.
Yes, it is in fact cloud computing. but because they use the same number of workers and they output the same amount of resources at the same speed, it's not like an upgrade. It's like a side grade. Because it's you could easily get away with not doing that, provided you have enough coal left to do that. If you're digging the coal up fast enough and you have enough left in your resource deposits or whatever,
sure.
There's no real reason to bother changing over to the nuclear power and arc furnace combo, apart from it being a cool thing to do, which is obviously why I did it, because I was I'm going to solve this puzzle, as you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the problem with that whole top end of that tech tree, is it's things you can easily get away with not using. Especially the fact that there's 3 tiers of nuclear power plants. It's just It meant that even the first tier makes way more power than the coal power plants do. So if you want to move into the high-powered arc furnaces and cloud computing stuff and all that uses a lot of power, it's you only even need the tier 1 of that. You don't even need to build the second or third tier. Apart from the second or third tier don't produce as much waste, I guess. So you don't have to build waste storage sites as quickly.
It sounds like if you're really pressed for space, you might want to invest in these,
if you're playing on one of the smaller maps and resources are getting low, because obviously the other reason to move away from coal is if the coal deposits on your island were running out. There are coal mines in the world map that you can run and then import the coal. But if you're spending the workers and Unity to import the coal via ship, why not import uranium instead, I guess?
Right.
because it's functionally the same at that point. So you might as well move to the other system. Although presumably you still need to import coal anyway for the other things that coal is used for that aren't just power. Because I guess the arc furnaces do still technically use coal, it's just graphite.
No.
You got to make it into graphite first. Just a lot less of it. But yeah, there's several other things like that at that top end of the tech tree. Mainly, I mean, the nuclear power stations and arc furnaces are the ones that are obviously completely different, but then there's a few things that are just like upgrades, which are not necessary either. You don't really need the second version of the microchip making machine or the second tier of robotic assemblers.
Right. So is this all just, as you say, just because you're perhaps on a slightly easy level?
Well,
like,
there was that. I was playing on this huge ass map where there's tons of resources, so I only had 2 ships running imports. One for uranium, just because I wanted to, so that wasn't even necessary, and then the other one for oil, which is sort of necessary, but I could have got to the other oil deposits on this map and just used those instead. It was just more of a matter of convenience at the time, where I was like, because obviously on that map, the Armageddon map, where there's the giant crater, in the bottom of the giant crater is a huge oil deposit, so you could go and get that. I just never, if I'd committed to doing that, I could have done that instead of importing it, but I didn't want to do that way. I never did get to the bottom of the crater, even by the end of the game. Because I had the thing about the way I was doing it is because the edge of the crater wall I was digging into was also the copper deposit. So I was just sort of using my copper mine to mine through the crater wall with the theoretical eventual goal to then dig down into the center of the crater. But because the other thing that maybe makes this game too easy in the late game is like you unlock the ability to increase your recycling efficiency. So in the end game, you can get like 90% recycling efficiency. So you virtually don't use any ores at that point. You're just recycling. So like the amount of copper I was using slowed down the copper mine so much that I never really got to the tunneling through the crater wall to get into the crater part of that. 90% recycling efficiency is maybe a bit ridiculous anyway. I feel like that's probably a bit too strong of a buff.
Yeah.
So there was that.
So that depends on what you're recycling.
Well, I mean, it is a weirdly limited system of like what you get recycling for. You get recycling for the research. So the research equipment you're funneling into the labs, you get the recycling out of that. Right. And you get...
I was about to say, it's like, I'm going to recycle my knowledge.
And you get the recycling out of the town, basically. Like, if you're feeding it furniture or whatever, you get the recycling from that. So you recover most of the glass and steel that are used in making the furniture. And then you also get recycling on the maintenance buildings. So you have this sort of... Because you're constantly having to make the maintenance thing, that's just constantly consuming resources. So then the recycling, you're just getting most of those resources back continuously. So that sort of negates the resource cost of maintenance almost.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas the other ones like research, obviously that's just a pure limit to how fast you want to research, and eventually there won't be any more of that because you'll just finish the tech tree. And the town is based on your population. Like, the more people you have, the more furniture you have to give them, so the more resources you're using to make that furniture, but then you're still getting the resources back from the recycling. So yeah, that was the end of my run. But then the other thing I wanted to talk about, which I also found kind of interesting, was I was watching some YouTube videos of various people playing it. And like, it's maybe another indication that the game is kind of too easy. Well, maybe not, too easy is purely subjective, but like... So I watched one video of a person who's very well known for playing Factorio mainly.
Okay.
And they were doing the Factorio thing and building like a main bus of like put all the resources on a line of belts and then have that run through your base and branch off and when you need the resources into the assemblers or whatever. And like in Captain of Industry, that's almost completely pointless. Like there's so few recipes and so few things that use the same items in different ways.
Right. Yeah.
That like building a main bus like that is almost entirely pointless and really just a huge waste of resources and power. But because the game is kind of easy, he was still able to do that. And he was even playing on the hardest difficulty as well. So, like, that was an interesting thing to see. And then the other video I was watching was just another guy who's also a bit more diverse in his factory gameplay, but, you know, Factorial is definitely involved.
Yeah, has a specialism.
But in his case, he was playing on one of the really small maps, the one which is like you start in a valley, so you have very limited space, but you can eventually get up onto the sides of the plateaus at the side of the valley. And the way he plays is like, I think mainly because of YouTube, he's playing like super fast. So he's trying to get everything done real quick and constantly rushing the buildings using the Unity and all that stuff. And that's interesting because like everything in his game seems like a constant panic because like everything is constantly running out or on the verge of running out and everything constantly needs replacing and upgrading. But like
like maintenance isn't the focus.
Well, yeah, like maintenance is running low and then he's got to build new. But like the thing about it is that because the game is easy, it always seems like he's on the verge of failing, but he never actually does. Like, it's actually quite difficult to actually fail in that game, even if you're playing it in this ridiculously rushed way. Because I did the experiment with that video where I went onto the same map and made sure I had the same settings and everything, same difficulty. And I played that same map myself to see how it went. And with the way I play it, which is like, you know, obviously super slow and methodical, like super slow, it's like I didn't find it difficult to maintain in like the way that game lets you get into stability or whatever. Because his game always seems super unstable, obviously, because that's what like he's constantly pushing against that. Whereas when I play it, it's easy to get into stability and just sit there for ages because you just can.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and it's just like it's really weird that like, well, his runs are another case where like he will sometimes butt up against the vehicle limit. Of like, you can only have so many vehicles, whereas I almost never get to 50% of the vehicle limit.
Oh, weird.
And that's like the fact that either one of those works equally well, in fact, is kind of strange, but is I think an indication of why that is like that game isn't actually that difficult. Like you can get away with pushing it that much and having everything seem unstable, but it's only that it seems unstable. It's not actually that dangerous. But yeah, so I experimented with that map and I was like, well, I got on top of the plateaus after like 83 years. And his game is like 130 something years and he still hasn't got to the top of the plateaus. And like he already has a fleet of vehicles that's like twice the size of the number of vehicles I have ever had on that save. Okay. And it's just like, well, that's weird, but it's kind of interesting in the fact that it does kind of show that game isn't.
Well, maybe his strategy just isn't the best strategy.
Well, sure, but like, even that's what I'm kind of saying is like, even if it isn't the best strategy, it does still work.
Yeah,
you can still do it that way. So yeah, that was weird. But yeah, I think I'm now that I've completed that run, I can move on to something else at last. Also, it was kind of weird that when you launch the rocket and it cuts to the credit sequence. Well, not much of a credit sequence, the credit scroll. And then after you've got through the credits and it pops back into the game, it pops up like the help menu thing. And it has a little sort of story sum up. Because at the very start of the game and the very end of the game, it's like the in-world lore of good job, Captain, you've finally launched a rocket or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But then in that menu, it mentions that it's still early access, and I was slightly surprised by that because I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess this game is still early access." I kind of forgot, but maybe that's why the top of the tech tree was that weird sparseness.
Well, maybe
there will be more of that at some point,
or maybe it will all be tweaked slightly. Or...
Yeah, I mean, they did sort of when they introduced the third tier of nuclear power station. They did sort of imply that one is sort of intentionally unnecessary, that it's just a complicated thing to do because it's cool. Not that it's necessary to do.
Right.
Although actually, when I unlocked it and looked at it but didn't build it, I was like, this doesn't actually seem that much more complicated than the tier 2 one. It's just that the fuel is liquid instead of solid, but that doesn't really change much.
Okay. It's got to add an extra step somewhere.
Yeah.
Got to use power to make power.
Yeah, you kind of actually do. Because a lot of those buildings get quite expensive. I mean, I had my coal power plant basically on standby the entire time, which is kind of... It's in the period of time a few patches ago before wood was introduced as a renewable resource. It was always sort of renewable, but you had to import it with boats. So it kind of uses diesel in that case. You're trading diesel for wood, essentially. Whereas now you can build a tree farm and actually grow them on your island. So in the time before that, having your coal power plant on standby like that would be bad because you'd be constantly draining coal, basically. It's sort of mitigated because the power plants use flywheels to store power. So basically what it does is it turns on the turbines, spins up the flywheels to maximum speed, and then turns the turbines off, and then depending on the power demand, it drains the energy out of the flywheels more or less quickly. So if your power plant is on completely standby, like there's no power being drawn, the flywheels do spin down, but it's like very slow. So the turbines only turn on occasionally to spin them back up to full. But that is still technically a constant slight drain on like your coal reserves, except obviously in my case, that was just a wood drain because I was running them on wood. Right. So having those on standby is actually like completely neutral on when you're running them with wood because you're just growing wood anyway.
Because it's not impacting your renewable.
You're not running out of resources in that way, which is kind of strange. But I mean, wood infrastructure. Technically, you are still trading diesel for wood because obviously all the wood cutting vehicles and stuff.
Oh yeah, they've still got to run.
And the cars driving the wood around. Trucks, I guess, not cars.
Build another truck.
Yep. Or don't. Build 50% of the trucks
Build
you need.
50% trucks.
So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next in terms of another game.
You out of factory games?
I don't know about that.
I keep seeing it's not Metopia. I keep seeing ads on my Twitter feed for some ant-based factory game.
I've seen some of those.
Microtia, something like that.
Microtopia or something probably.
Microtopia. Ants.
Yeah, ants.
Sim ant.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to go to that special category I made at the top of my Steam list and be like, maybe I could get through one of these.
Yeah, your backlog list.
Well, my games that I really should actually play.
Yeah.
But also Game Pass, I guess. I
suppose
that's
always the thing, right? Well, there's always Game Pass.
Well, I suppose I have been looking at, there's been quite a lot of people talking about Mana Lords.
Oh, yeah.
Which is on Game Pass. And that's sort of, I guess, one of the kinds of games I play in the banished kind of...
It's a city builder.
Yeah, city building type thing. Although it does that apparently seem to have some elements of Total Warness to it.
Well, I was about to say, isn't it like sort of Crusader Kings adjacent?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
One of those style of things. But yeah, I don't know.
So politics.
Maybe
Backstabbing.
Maybe I'll give that a shot on Game Pass. See if that, or maybe I'll wait on that a bit for them to get a few more patches out because that is the thing about a just released game like that.
Sure, yeah.
Everyone's talking about it, but everyone is also saying there's a lot of things that are kind of buggy.
Yeah, tearing apart where the whole, finding the holes.
Yeah, but there's also still fucking Pizza Town.
Woo!
One day I'll get round to start that. The trouble with that is definitely a game that I need to be in a certain state of mind for. You need to put in some...
I think you need to be pretty awake.
Yeah, put in some awakeness to that.
Yeah. Because that has sort of driven my gaming choices for the last few weeks. Has been like, I'm tired. And I'm going to play Lego because it's mindless, pretty much. I'm going to play Harold because
it puts you to sleep some more.
Because I don't... There's nothing happening, so...
I did download a few other things on Game Pass just ahead of time, but I forgot what they were.
I think when Dan was talking about you sort of mentioned like there's nothing annoying like Dirt Rally voices. It's like I think you meant Dirt 3, right? You were talking about that.
Dirt 3 is what I meant. Yeah, not Dirt Rally. Sorry.
I do think like Lego 2K Drive does have that issue.
It's for kids though. I mean, that's slightly more acceptable.
The main characters are fine, but like they chose the character they chose to play the garage assistant is a very, very high pitched monkey character.
Okay,
and so going all the time, and and so I did engage with the garage a little bit just to see how its systems work and things like that. And as I said, as I said before, they're pretty capable. You can build a whole bunch of stuff, and people do. I've got the friggin' Blue Falcon as a boat.
Right,
it's cool. I kind of want to build one myself. Like it's pretty neat. But yeah, like what you're going through this tutorial of like how the systems work or anything, you've got this incredibly annoying, high-pitched, squeaky monkey voice telling you how everything does. And the problem is like even when you're not at the garage and you're just driving around, the game like will occasionally like have the characters like say something at you, like. And this monkey character will turn up every now and then and be like, why did you come to the garage? Like, have you ever thought of building the dumbest vehicle in the world? Well, you can at the garage. And she's doing this like every few minutes or so. And it's like, shut up. Can I not turn this off? I'm squeaking like you are. God damn it. Bark less.
Less barks.
Less barks.
Oh, and I suppose... Wait, did we talk about this last... No, it wouldn't have been last time. I guess me and Rob played some more Roto Quest.
Oh, yeah. We did. We got a success run.
Yeah, we actually finished a run at last.
Wow.
And then I spent far too long after we did that listening to the soundtrack on Spotify.
Because that was during the credit sequence, Rob took the opportunity to
be like, oh, I wonder if this is on Spotify. It totally is. And it's it does the thing okay soundtrack review.
Yeah,
it does the thing that like game soundtracks often do, like on these services, where it's got, like they loop the track far too many times.
Right.
If you ask me, I'm happy just to listen to the loop once and then move on, maybe twice if it's an absolute banger. But there's a couple where it loops like 4, maybe 5 times. It's like, you didn't need to do that. That's annoying. Because now that's it. Now if I want to listen to that, I've got to manually skip it when I've had enough, rather than you just fading out of existence at the right time. And it's like, I thought I was listening to Energy Center, which is, a highlight for me for some reason. That gets absolutely stuck in my head, that track. Yeah, that's one of the worst ones for the loop problem.
Maybe that's why it gets stuck in your head.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, I love that soundtrack by Noise Cream.
Yep.
Banging hardcore tunes by Noise Cream.
Yeah, I mean, he also did the soundtrack to Midnight Fight Express as well, which is very similar. He's got a style. Yeah. Let's put it that way. Everything he does is kind of like this, but in the context of RoboQuest, oh my god, what a soundtrack! It's great. I love it. First boss theme in particular, I like that as well.
Yes, and so we finished that run, but we still theoretically got some more runs to do.
We're not done.
Not for the extended difficulty, even. Like, we just didn't even have all the crystals.
Nope, I haven't.
When we did the last boss,
there's a whole level I haven't been to yet.
Yeah,
there's a gap on the world map. Like,
have I been to that? I don't remember that. I don't remember when we were looking at the map when we'd worked out what that was.
No, well maybe that. I don't know. That crystal must be somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
Yeah, I think I have all of them.
You must have it. Yeah,
I think so. But yeah, there's still that to do. But then obviously once you finish a run, you start unlocking the fancy difficulties that are like harder than hard or whatever. Even though we were only playing on normal.
Yeah. So maybe we'll start tinkering with hard mode. So, and then we've they had the Arsenal update recently as well, which added a whole bunch of guns,
which I feel like we've seen quite a few of, just coincidentally.
Yeah. They seem to come up.
Well, maybe not coincidentally, possibly. That might be intentional.
Yeah.
I did watch another random bit of a YouTube video of someone else playing that, and they were playing as engineers, so they have their little drone things. but because of the way the Arsenal update also slightly changed the way the wording works on the powers, you can get upgrades now that affect all your minions, right?
Right, yes, summons, they call them.
Summons. So they were playing an engineer run, so they already had their little minion things and engineer powers that give upgrades to them. But then they got the minion box that just deploys more little robots, basically, to help you. Yeah. And then they found another minion box, so they just took 2 minion boxes and were just switching between them and just spamming a million minions.
Okay.
Which worked great, apart from any time they needed to actually shoot something.
Hit something, yeah.
But it was pretty funny. It was like the pure minion run.
That's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice. Yeah, that game's cool. You'll be able to watch us play some of that.
Yep.
On a video thing.
On a video.
Very soon.
Coming up soon.
We took a brief break from Half-Life 2 to make a vote request video instead.
Yeah. So I'm still undecided about whether I'm going to go to the full effort to do editing between both camera angles, because I can this time.
Yeah, because I recorded my footage. Now that I can do that, just completely arbitrarily.
Yeah. I might do that.
Because
I might do that at times, yeah. I'll have to see how easy that is. Probably quite time consuming to do a full on edit.
Yes, but I mean, probably not going to be a full edit. Maybe, as I suggested, the obvious place to be doing it would be when Rob goes down.
Oh yeah, when I die.
Because the third person camera that it gives you when you're looking at the other player is kind of weird and jank.
Yeah, we can swap over to the other to see what Zach's up to while I'm on the floor having a nap, having a robo nap,
rebooting.
Robo napping.
Right, so look forward to that on our YouTube channel, Happy Salad, and also the continuation of our Half-Life 2 Let's Play.
Yeah, boy.
And then we'll do more of these podcasts in future. We've done them in the past for a while.
we've done some podcasts before.
We've done some podcasts.
This isn't episode 1, I'll have you know.
No, this is episode...
Go on, take a guess.
Multiple hundreds later.
368.
368, yeah. So
if you listened to a podcast today, you'd be listening for over a year.
Yeah.
Even though we've been doing it for like 14 at this point.
So join us in 2 weeks for 369, dude. And we'll catch you then. In the meantime, have a good week or 2. Bye.